Welcome to Tech with Koushik. This is set 3 of our AB-100 Agentic AI Business Solutions Architect practice question series. Choose your answer before the timer ends. Then review the correct answer, detailed explanation, and exam tip. Keep track of your score and see how exam ready you are. Each practice set is completely standalone, so you can start here without watching any of the other sets first. Playlist link is in the description. Let us begin set 3. For question number 77, separate the requirement from the distractors. We are now working with agent flows. Pay attention to qualifiers such as least, most, and minimum. A finance department receives invoices in several formats and systems. The AI solution must analyze documents, validate extracted data, route approvals, and let employees review or approve work through Microsoft Teams. The organization prefers low-code customization. Which architecture best satisfies the requirements? Watch for distractors that are valid services but wrong for this scenario. Consider option A, Azure OpenAI with custom Azure functions. Consider option B, a SharePoint agent only. Consider option C, Microsoft Copilot Studio with AI Builder. Consider option D, Azure Document Intelligence with custom Azure Logic apps as the primary user experience. The required response is option C, Microsoft Copilot Studio with AI Builder. The key clue points here because AI Builder supplies low-code document processing, while Copilot Studio provides the conversational agent experience and can integrate approval workflows and teams-facing interactions with minimal custom code. Here is how to rule out the alternatives. A. This is code first and adds unnecessary implementation effort. B. A SharePoint agent does not provide the required multi-step invoice processing and approval orchestration. D. The components can automate document workflows, but the option does not provide the requested low-code Teams agent experience as directly as Copilot Studio plus AI Builder. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Combine low-code document intelligence with Copilot Studio when users need an agent experience around structured business workflows. Focus on the key wording in question number 78. This scenario tests whether you recognize the controlling constraint. A Copilot Studio support agent must securely retrieve warranty information from an existing REST API. The organization wants the least custom development while retaining governed authentication and reuse. What should the architect include? The exam distinction is hidden in these choices. Option A, a custom connector used by the Copilot Studio agent. Option B, a Power Automate desktop flow that screen scrapes the warranty site. Option C, warranty records embedded in the fallback topic. Option D, export the agent as managed and customize it in Power Apps. The option that satisfies the complete requirement is option A, a custom connector used by the Copilot Studio agent. A custom connector provides a supported reusable integration layer for the REST API, including authentication and actions that the agent can invoke. The incorrect choices are plausible, but unsuitable because B, screen scraping is less reliable and unnecessary when a REST API exists. C, fallback topics are not data integration stores. D, ELM packaging does not create the required API integration. Use this elimination rule in the exam. When a supported API exists, prefer a connector or structured tool integration over UI automation. Now tackle question number 79. This question moves us into Copilot fallback. Identify the requirement in this scenario. An e-commerce Copilot Studio agent uses generative orchestration. The agent must return a standard help response when input is unclear and must invoke external order services when a user asks for a supported business action. Drag the most appropriate Copilot Studio feature to each requirement. Review the source capabilities. Source 1, a tool connector. Source 2, the fallback topic. Source 3, a trigger phrase. Source 4, a skill. Source 5, the escalate topic. The destinations to satisfy are: Destination A, return a default help response for unclear input. Destination B, initiate an external process such as order status retrieval. The first correct pair is the fallback topic to return a default help response for unclear input. The second correct pair is a tool connector to initiate an external process such as order status retrieval. The decisive reason is the fallback topic handles unrecognized or unresolved conversational input. A connector exposed as a tool lets generative orchestration invoke an external business action when required. A useful exam pattern is this. Fallback handles unclear conversation. Tools/actions perform external work. Question number 80 is a good test of exam judgment. The key exam clue is contained in this scenario. A field service organization uses Dynamics 365 to dispatch work orders and support technicians performing scheduled customer visits. The company wants AI assistance both for staff managing work orders and for frontline technicians preparing for appointments. Which two components should the architect include? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. The selection count is 2. Use it as a constraint. Focus on which option satisfies the complete requirement. Now examine choice A, Dynamics 365 Customer Voice. Now examine choice B, Microsoft 365 Copilot for Sales. Now examine choice C, Copilot in Dynamics 365 Field Service. Now examine choice D, Dynamics 365 Field Service Mobile App. Now examine choice E, Azure AI Search. After checking every constraint, choose option C, Copilot in Dynamics 365 Field Service, and option D, Dynamics 365 Field Service Mobile App. Here is the reasoning that confirms the answer. Copilot in Field Service provides AI assistance around work orders and service operations. The Field Service mobile app delivers contextual work order information and Copilot support to frontline technicians in the field. A. Customer voice captures feedback rather than managing field service work. B. Copilot for Sales targets seller workflows, not technician work orders. E. Azure AI Search is a retrieval service, not the native field service user experience. Use the native Dynamics 365 workload Copilot and the frontline app when the requirement spans dispatch/service management and technicians. Question number 81. Find the decisive clue before choosing. We are moving to MCP extensibility. Look for the wording that eliminates the distractors. A Microsoft Foundry agent must discover and use external business tools dynamically at runtime. The organization wants to add or change available tools without rewriting the agent's core implementation. Which component should the architect recommend? Eliminate every option that violates even one requirement. Next, option A, a model context protocol server. Next, option B, a Power BI semantic model. Next, option C, an Azure resource lock. Next, option D, a static system prompt containing every tool response. After elimination, select option A model context protocol server. This option satisfies the complete requirement because an MCP server exposes tools through a standardized interface, so compatible agents can discover and invoke external capabilities without hard-coding each tool into the agent. Check why each remaining option is not the best fit. B. A semantic model provides analytical data, not dynamic tool interoperability. C. A resource lock protects Azure resources, but does not expose agent tools. D. A static prompt cannot provide live runtime tool execution or flexible tool discovery. Remember this decision rule. Use MCP when the architectural requirement is standardized tool/context interoperability and dynamic external capability access. Question number 82 contains an important exam distinction. Focus on the requirement that drives the design choice. A sales organization uses Dynamics 365 Sales and wants Copilot opportunity summaries to include additional business-relevant opportunity fields while preserving the native summary experience. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Statement 1. Test this claim. Configure the opportunity summary field selection so the additional fields are included in the Copilot-generated summary. Statement 1 is yes. Dynamics 365 Sales supports configuring the fields used to generate opportunity summaries, so adding the required fields is an appropriate native customization. Exam strategy. When the native Dynamics Copilot feature exposes summary field configuration, customize that configuration before building external automation. Question number 83 is a good test of exam judgment. This easy question rewards structured elimination. Focus on the requirement that drives the design choice. A sales organization uses Dynamics 365 Sales and wants to change which opportunity information appears in the native Copilot-generated summary. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select No. For the first statement, verify. Create a Power Automate flow that triggers and rewrites the native Copilot opportunity summary instead of configuring the summary fields. After checking the full claim, Statement 1 is No. The requirement is to customize the native Dynamics 365 Sales Opportunity Summary content. The supported approach is to configure the fields used by the summary, not replace the feature with a Power Automate flow. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Prefer native Copilot configuration when the product directly supports the required summary customization. Approach question number 84. By checking every constraint, identify the decisive constraint before considering the options. A Dynamics 365 sales team wants Copilot opportunity summaries to display selected opportunity information more consistently. For the statement, select Yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select No. Now evaluate Statement 1. Use an AI Builder lead scoring model to determine which fields the native opportunity summary will include. The correct judgment for Statement 1 is No. AI Builder lead scoring addresses predictive scoring, not the configuration of fields used by Dynamics 365 Sales Copilot opportunity summaries. Use this elimination rule in the exam. Do not substitute an adjacent AI capability when the requirement is controlled by a native Dynamics Copilot setting. Question number 85. Tests careful elimination. The focus now shifts to pre-built agent use cases. Background. Fabricam Electronics is planning its first wave of AI adoption across Dynamics 365 finance and operations applications. Current environment. The organization uses Dynamics 365 supply chain management and wants to evaluate pre-built autonomous agents before choosing one for an initial deployment. Business requirements. The technology leadership team needs to browse available agent templates, preview their capabilities, and identify which option provides the strongest business value. Technical requirements. The selection process should use the native finance and operations agent discovery and management experience. Which capability should the solution architect recommend? Compare the options by fit, not by familiarity. Next, option A, Lifecycle Services, LCS. Next, option B, Agent Management. Next, option C, Microsoft Copilot Studio. Next, option D, Immersive Home Only. The best answer is option B, Agent Management. The requirement to solution match is agent management in finance and operations apps provides the agent's library used to browse available templates, preview capabilities, and configure agents for deployment. Now eliminate the distractors. A. LCS is not the agent template discovery experience. C. Copilot Studio is used to build and manage custom agents, but is not the native supply chain management library for selecting pre-built finance and operations agents. D. Immersive Home is a navigation hub, but the actual template discovery and selection occurs through the agent's library provided by Agent Management. A useful exam pattern is this. For Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations pre-built agents, distinguish the Agent Management library from general navigation or custom agent authoring. Work through question number 86. Step by step. Start by separating the facts from the requirement. Northwind Manufacturing has an existing internal MCP server that exposes engineering specifications and compliance information. A low-code Copilot Studio agent must use those resources without rebuilding the R&D service. Complete the MCP integration design by selecting the best option for each step. Statement 1. Identify the clue in. To expose the existing MCP endpoint through the connector-based integration path, create the blank. Compare 1. An Azure AI bot service channel, a custom connector, a custom OData entity, or semantic kernel against the requirement. Statement 2. Identify the clue in. To make the MCP capability available during agent orchestration, add the blank. Compare 2. An event trigger, the MCP server, a REST API definition, or a standalone workflow against the requirement. After elimination, Statement 1 uses a custom connector. Copilot Studio supports connecting an existing MCP server through a custom connector as one supported onboarding path. After elimination, Statement 2 uses the MCP server. An MCP server is added to the agent as a tool, so its published tools and resources can be invoked by orchestration. For an existing MCP server, distinguish the onboarding path from the agent tool. Direct MCP onboarding is the recommended default, but a custom connector is also supported when the scenario explicitly requires the connector-based path. Question number 87. Find the decisive clue before choosing. Look for the wording that eliminates the distractors. Contoso Retail uses a Microsoft Foundry agent that retrieves information from several enterprise knowledge sources before generating product recommendations. Telemetry shows that requests frequently approach the model context/token limit and response latency is increasing. What should the architect change to reduce token consumption while preserving the useful knowledge sources? Eliminate every option that violates even one requirement. Consider option A. Lower the output token limit without changing retrieval. Consider option B. Remove several knowledge sources from the agent. Consider option C. Restrict the amount of retrieved context supplied to the prompt. Consider option D. Only change document chunk boundaries during indexing. The correct choice is option C. Restrict the amount of retrieved context supplied to the prompt. The key clue points here because limiting retrieved context reduces prompt token consumption while preserving access to the knowledge sources and retaining the most relevant grounding information. The remaining options fail one or more requirements because A. A lower output limit affects response length but does not address excessive retrieved prompt context. B. Removing sources can reduce coverage and degrade answer quality. D. Chunking can improve retrieval quality, but it does not directly guarantee less context is passed to the model. Remember this decision rule. When token pressure comes from grounding, tune retrieval/context size before removing useful knowledge sources. Move to question number 88. Next, we enter the topic of Copilot Studio ELM. Scenario. AdventureWorks has development, staging, and production Power Platform environments. A Copilot Studio agent uses Dataverse and Azure AI search through external connections. Production data and credentials must remain outside the deployment package, and each environment has its own connection bindings and endpoint or resource configuration values. Select the ALM approach that best keeps production data external to the package and rebinds the agent securely after import. Solve the blanks one at a time. Do not carry assumptions between them. The first blank appears in. The deployment solution should contain the blank. The candidates are 1. The agent only, the external data sources only, the agent and copied production data, the agent and references to its external data sources, or the agent, credentials, and all source data. The second blank appears in. After import into production, administrators should bind the blank. The candidates are 2. Only the Dataverse connection reference, only the Azure AI search connection reference, the target environment connection references, and environment variable values, the agent instructions, or the environment variable values only. Complete statement 1 with the agent and references to its external data sources. ALM should move the agent and its dependency references rather than copying environment-specific production data into the solution. Complete statement 2 with the target environment connection references and environment variable values. The imported solution must be bound to valid target environment connections and supplied with the production-specific configuration values without packaging production data or credentials. Exam strategy. In Power Platform ALM, use connection references for target environment connections and environment variables for environment-specific configuration. Do not package production data or secrets as solution content. Question number 89 contains an important exam distinction. This scenario tests whether you recognize the controlling constraint. A Copilot Studio agent supports Dynamics 365 customer service representatives. Its resolution rate has fallen while its escalation rate has increased, and the team needs to identify which topics and conversations are driving the decline. Which analytics experience should the architect use first? The exam distinction is hidden in these choices. Option A. The Microsoft 365 Search and Intelligence Insights page. Option B. The analytics experience in Copilot Studio. Option C. The Copilot Hub in Power Platform Admin Center. Option D. The Human Agent Dashboard in Dynamics 365 Customer Service Historical Analytics. After elimination, select option B, the analytics experience in Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio Analytics provides agent-level and topic-level metrics such as resolution and escalation and helps identify the agent behavior driving poor outcomes. Here is how to rule out the alternatives. A. Microsoft 365 Search Insights do not diagnose Copilot Studio conversation outcomes. C. The Copilot Hub is an administration/discovery surface rather than the primary agent performance diagnostic dashboard. D. Customer service historical analytics focuses on service operations and human/omnichannel reporting rather than the Copilot Studio topic behavior being investigated. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Use Copilot Studio analytics to diagnose agent resolution, escalation, abandonment, engagement, and topic performance. Question number 90. The focus now shifts to custom model validation. Review the scenario. Woodgrove Bank is evaluating a generative model in Microsoft Foundry. Reviewers need an LLM as a judge evaluation that uses a GPT-4o deployment to score overall response coherence and quality numerically for each test item. Which metric category should the architect select? Choice A, risk and safety metrics. Choice B, AI-assisted quality metrics. Choice C, NLP similarity metrics only. Choice D, groundedness only. The required response is option B, AI-assisted quality metrics. The decisive reason is AI-assisted quality evaluators use a judge model such as GPT-4o to assess dimensions such as coherence and return numeric quality scores. The incorrect choices are plausible, but unsuitable because A. Risk and safety evaluators assess harms rather than general coherence. C. NLP similarity metrics use algorithmic/reference comparisons and do not satisfy the GPT-4o judge requirement. D. Groundedness measures support from context, not overall coherence and quality. Use this elimination rule in the exam. When the requirement explicitly calls for an LLM judge, choose an AI-assisted evaluator rather than a purely algorithmic NLP metric. Focus on the key wording in question number 91. The key exam clue is contained in this scenario. A deployed Copilot Studio support agent is being reviewed. Operations needs one metric for live agent handoff frequency and another analytic signal for queries whose generated answers fail because the configured knowledge source cannot provide a valid result. Select the best Copilot Studio metric from the supplied choices for each requirement. Use the context of each statement to select its drop-down value. Now solve statement 1. The percentage of engaged sessions handed off to a human representative is measured by the blank. Eliminate between 1. Answer quality, customer satisfaction, CSAT, score, engagement rate, or escalation rate. Now solve statement 2. Knowledge source failures affecting generated answers are investigated through the blank. Eliminate between 2. Answer quality, knowledge source use, or escalation rate. For statement 1, the best fit is escalation rate. Escalation rate is the share of engaged sessions that are escalated or transferred to a representative. For statement 2, the best fit is knowledge source use. Knowledge source use exposes per source activity and error rates, making it the direct analytic signal for identifying knowledge sources that return errors. A useful exam pattern is this. Use escalation rate for human handoff frequency, and use knowledge source use when the problem is source-level grounding activity or knowledge source errors. Approach question number 92 by checking every constraint. This question moves us into Foundry Agent ALM. Identify the decisive constraint before considering the options. Fabricam is preparing a new Microsoft Foundry Agent version for production. Governance requires every candidate version to be evaluated against established accuracy baselines before promotion, and deployed versions to be continuously or periodically evaluated for quality drift after release. What should the architect include in the lifecycle process? Compare the options by fit, not by familiarity. Consider option A. Publish every version directly to production and inspect failures later. Consider option B. Use Foundry control plane observability with evaluations and drift monitoring. Consider option C. Use only application insights and Azure Monitor without quality evaluations. Consider option D. Configure GitHub Actions without an evaluation gate. The option that satisfies the complete requirement is option B. Use Foundry control plane observability with evaluations and drift monitoring. Here is the reasoning that confirms the answer. Microsoft Foundry supports repeatable evaluations that can establish release baselines and acceptance thresholds before promotion. After deployment, Foundry control plane observability and continuous or scheduled evaluations can track quality, risk, and drift over time. A. Direct production deployment bypasses the required baseline validation. C. Operational telemetry alone does not provide the required accuracy evaluation gate. D. CI/CD automation does not by itself evaluate agent quality against baselines. Separate release validation from production monitoring. Use repeatable evaluations as the promotion gate, then use continuous or scheduled evaluation and drift monitoring after release. Let's break down question number 93. First, locate the key operational constraint. A Power Platform organization allows makers to build several Copilot Studio agents. Security policy requires agents to use only approved connectors and prevents combinations of connectors that could move sensitive business data to unapproved services. Which control should the architect recommend? Now compare the choices one requirement at a time. Choice A, Dataverse auditing only. Choice B, Power Platform data loss prevention policies. Choice C, customer-managed encryption keys only. Choice D, Azure Monitor connector logging. The correct choice is option B, Power Platform data loss prevention policies. This option satisfies the complete requirement because Power Platform data policies/DLP policies classify and govern connectors and can prevent prohibited data movement between business and non-business services. Check why each remaining option is not the best fit. A. Auditing records activity after the fact, but does not enforce connector use. C. Encryption protects data at rest, but does not control connector combinations. D. Monitoring logs activity, but does not block unapproved connectors. Remember this decision rule. Use Power Platform DLP/data policies to govern which connectors agents and apps can combine and use. For question number 94, separate the requirement from the distractors. We are moving to prompt engineering. Pay attention to qualifiers such as least, most, and minimum. An enterprise wants reusable prompt guidelines for Copilot Studio agents so that responses remain effective as real users phrase requests in different ways. Which two practices should the architect recommend? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Choose the best two answers and verify both. Watch for distractors that are valid services but wrong for this scenario. Next, option A, measure server resource utilization during prompt execution. Next, option B, write clear and specific prompt instructions. Next, option C, regularly test and refine prompts using representative user input. Next, option D, track average conversation duration as the primary prompt design rule. Next, option E, optimize only for prompt character count distribution. The correct selections are option B, write clear and specific prompt instructions, and option C, regularly test and refine prompts using representative user input. The requirement to solution match is clear, specific instructions reduce ambiguity, and iterative testing with representative user input validates that prompts continue to perform well in realistic interactions. Now eliminate the distractors. A. Infrastructure utilization is not a prompt engineering best practice. D. Session duration is an operational metric, not a direct prompt design rule. E. Prompt length alone does not establish clarity, correctness, grounding, or robustness. Exam strategy. Effective prompt engineering combines explicit instructions with iterative validation against representative inputs. Question number 95 is a good test of exam judgment. This scenario tests whether you recognize the controlling constraint. A company runs Azure-hosted generative AI models and agents. It wants Azure-native monitoring with minimal custom development, one service for operational health and model/application metrics, and one service for compliance policy monitoring across AI resources. Drag the best Azure service to each requirement. First, identify what each source item actually does. The first source candidate is Azure Monitor. The second source candidate is Azure Policy. The third source candidate is Microsoft Defender. The fourth source candidate is Microsoft Purview. The fifth source candidate is Azure Stream Analytics. The sixth source candidate is Azure API Management. Compare the sources against these target requirements. Target A, monitor performance metrics and operational health. Target B, monitor AI applications and agents for compliance with Azure governance policy. Match Azure Monitor with Monitor Performance Metrics and Operational Health because their roles align. Match Azure Policy with Monitor AI Applications and Agents for compliance with Azure Governance Policy because their roles align. The key clue points here because Azure Monitor is the native observability platform for metrics, logs, health, and alerts. Azure Policy evaluates resource configurations against governance and compliance requirements. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Separate operational observability from configuration compliance. Monitor observes health. Policy evaluates governance rules. Question number 96. Tests careful elimination. Next, we enter the topic of Copilot Studio ELM. Pay attention to qualifiers such as least, most, and minimum. Contoso uses Copilot Studio agents with custom connectors in development, test, and production. The organization needs repeatable deployments and must prevent direct customization of production components. Which two actions should the architect include? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. You need precisely two selections. Eliminate every option that violates even one requirement. Consider option A, deploy unmanaged solutions to production. Consider option B, include the agents and custom connectors in a Power Platform solution. Consider option C, rebuild each agent manually in every environment. Consider option D, deploy managed solutions to production. Consider option E, move agents by exporting and importing Dataverse data. The answers that fully satisfy the requirement are option B, include the agents and custom connectors in a Power Platform solution, and option D, deploy managed solutions to production. Solutions package agents and connectors with their dependencies, and managed solutions provide the controlled downstream deployment model appropriate for production. The remaining options fail one or more requirements because A, unmanaged production solutions allow direct customization and weaken lifecycle control. C, manual rebuilding creates drift and is not repeatable ALM. E, data export/import is not the deployment mechanism for agent and connector solution components. Use this elimination rule in the exam. Package related Power Platform components and solutions, and use managed solutions for controlled production deployment. Question number 97. Scenario. An organization publishes several Copilot Studio agents through different channels. The operations team needs detailed runtime telemetry and performance diagnostics that can be queried beyond the built-in conversation dashboards. Which service should the architect recommend? Option A, Microsoft Purview. Option B, Application Insights. Option C, Dynamics 365 Customer Voice. Option D, Log Analytics without an Application Insights integration. The best answer is option B, Application Insights. The decisive reason is Application Insights is the supported telemetry integration for detailed Copilot Studio runtime events, diagnostics, latency, errors, and custom analysis. Here is how to rule out the alternatives. A, Purview is a governance and compliance service, not the primary runtime telemetry store. C, Customer Voice captures surveys rather than comprehensive agent telemetry. D, Log Analytics can query Azure Monitor data, but Application Insights is the direct Copilot Studio telemetry integration requested. A useful exam pattern is this. Use Copilot Studio Analytics for built-in conversation metrics and Application Insights for detailed operational telemetry. Next is question number 98. We are moving to responsible AI. A marketing solution uses a generative model to produce customer emails. A fairness review finds systematic differences in generated content correlated with sensitive customer traits. An investigation traces the behavior to representation and labeling issues in the training examples. What should the architect recommend? Compare the options. Option A, randomize generated emails after inference. Option B, only rewrite the system instruction. Option C, increase dataset size without changing its composition. Option D, correct the problematic training data composition and labels, then revalidate the model. The required response is option D, correct the problematic training data composition and labels, then revalidate the model. Here is the reasoning that confirms the answer. Responsible AI fairness mitigation should address the identified source of bias. Correcting biased or unrepresentative training data targets the root cause and should be followed by validation across affected groups. The incorrect choices are plausible, but unsuitable because Randomization does not create fairness and can reduce reliability. B. Prompt changes may influence behavior, but do not correct a confirmed training data bias. C. A larger dataset can preserve or amplify the same bias if its composition remains flawed. When bias is traced to data, fix the data distribution or labels and reevaluate fairness rather than masking the symptom. For question number 99, separate the requirement from the distractors. Identify the decisive constraint before considering the options. A Power Apps Canvas application already contains the legacy Copilot control and runs in an environment encrypted with a customer-managed key. The organization needs the existing legacy experience to remain available temporarily while it plans migration to Microsoft 365 Copilot and Canvas apps, and it must not change the current environment's encryption policy. What should the architect recommend for the interim legacy experience? Compare the options by fit, not by familiarity. Next, option A. Continue using the legacy Copilot control in the current customer-managed key environment. Next, option B. Add another legacy Copilot control to the app in the current environment. Next, option C. Duplicate the app inside the same customer-managed key environment. Next, option D. Move the existing app to a compatible environment that uses Microsoft-managed encryption and plan migration to Microsoft 365 Copilot and Canvas apps. After elimination, select option D. Move the existing app to a compatible environment that uses Microsoft-managed encryption and plan migration to Microsoft 365 Copilot and Canvas apps. This option satisfies the complete requirement because the legacy Power Apps Canvas Copilot control doesn't work in environments that use customer-managed keys. Microsoft also stopped allowing the legacy Copilot control to be added to new Canvas apps beginning February 2, 2026, and recommends Microsoft 365 Copilot and Canvas apps as the replacement. Moving the existing app to a compatible Microsoft-managed encryption environment preserves the interim legacy behavior without weakening the original environment's encryption policy, while the migration plan addresses the feature's retirement path. A. The legacy Copilot control doesn't work in the stated customer-managed key environment. B. A second legacy control can't be added as a workaround, and the same environment remains incompatible. C. A duplicate in the same customer-managed key environment has the same encryption limitation. Remember this decision rule. For legacy Canvas Copilot questions, remember both current constraints. The control is incompatible with customer-managed key environments, and new additions were discontinued beginning February 2, 2026 in favor of Microsoft 365 Copilot and Canvas apps. Question number 100. Tests careful elimination. Background. Blue Yonder Manufacturing is creating a Copilot Studio agent that is surfaced with Dynamics 365 supply chain management. Current environment. The agent is a Power Platform component, while part of the business logic it invokes is implemented in Finance and Operations X++ code. Business requirements. The organization needs a repeatable ALM process for both the low-code agent assets and the Finance and Operations business logic. Technical requirements. Each technology must be packaged by using the lifecycle mechanism appropriate to its platform. Which two deployment artifacts should the architect include? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Select exactly two answers. Do not choose extra options. Watch for distractors that are valid services but wrong for this scenario. Consider option A, a cloud scale unit package. Consider option B, a Microsoft Power Platform solution. Consider option C, a generic zip archive only. Consider option D, an Azure package. Consider option E, an application, AOD, deployable package containing the X++ extension. The required combination is option B, a Microsoft Power Platform solution, and option E, an application, AOD, deployable package containing the X++ extension. The requirement to solution match is the Copilot Studio agent and related Power Platform components belong in a Microsoft Power Platform solution. Finance and Operations X++ customizations are compiled into application packages and delivered through an application, AOD, deployable package, which is the platform-native deployment artifact for that code. Check why each remaining option is not the best fit. A. A cloud scale unit package is not the packaging boundary for the Copilot Studio agent and X++ extension described. C. A generic zip file does not provide platform-aware ALM, dependencies, or managed deployment. D. An Azure package is not the required Power Platform or Finance and Operations deployment artifact. Exam strategy. Cross-platform AI ELM can require separate native artifacts. Power Platform solutions for Copilot Studio assets and application, AOD, deployable packages for finance and operations, X++ customizations. Question number 101. Find the decisive clue before choosing. The focus now shifts to agent governance. Look for the wording that eliminates the distractors. An enterprise AI adoption program assigns 2 governance responsibilities. The security leader must discover and inventory Azure AI resources for audit coverage. The information leader must classify and label sensitive data used by the AI solutions. Drag the Microsoft tool to the executive responsibility it best supports. Start with these movable items. Source Item 1, Azure Resource Graph Explorer. Source Item 2, Microsoft Purview. Source Item 3, Copilot Studio. Source Item 4, Azure Blob Storage. Now identify the requirement represented by each destination. Requirement A, discover and inventory Azure AI resources across subscriptions. Requirement B, apply and govern sensitivity labels for enterprise data. For Mapping 1, Azure Resource Graph Explorer satisfies discover and inventory Azure AI resources across subscriptions. For Mapping 2, Microsoft Purview satisfies apply and govern sensitivity labels for enterprise data. The key clue points here because Azure Resource Graph provides cross-subscription inventory and query capability for Azure resources. Microsoft Purview provides information protection and sensitivity label governance for enterprise data. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Use resource inventory tools for asset discovery and Purview for data classification, labeling, and compliance. Question number 102. Background. Fabricam is establishing a quarterly governance review for AI solutions used across several business units. Current environment. The executive sponsor wants a Microsoft-recommended assessment that brings together model performance, fairness, interpretability, and error analysis to support responsible AI review. Business requirements. The review should help stakeholders identify unfairness, understand model behavior, and evaluate reliability before approving continued use. Technical requirements. The organization already uses Azure AI and Azure Machine Learning assets where the dashboard is supported. Which tool should the architect recommend from the available choices? The choices are Option A, Microsoft Purview. Option B, Microsoft Service Trust Portal. Option C, Responsible AI Dashboard. Option D, Microsoft Foundry Tools only. The best answer is Option C, Responsible AI Dashboard. For supported Azure Machine Learning models, the Responsible AI Dashboard provides a model-level assessment surface that brings together model performance and fairness exploration, interpretability, data exploration, and error analysis. That scope matches the scenarios requested Responsible AI model review. It is not being used here as a complete enterprise agent governance platform. Now eliminate the distractors. A. Purview governs data and compliance, but does not provide the requested model fairness and interpretability dashboard. B. The Service Trust Portal provides Microsoft compliance documentation rather than model-specific assessment. D. Foundry Tools is too broad and does not identify the specific dashboard described. Use this elimination rule in the exam. Use the Responsible AI Dashboard when the requirement is holistic model assessment for supported Azure Machine Learning models. Use governance and compliance services separately when the requirement is enterprise-wide agent or data governance. Approach question number 103 by checking every constraint. This question moves us into agent performance metrics. Pay attention to qualifiers such as least, most, and minimum. Contoso reviews a Copilot Studio agent quarterly. Finance wants to compare abandoned and resolved conversations to identify inefficient credit consumption. Product leadership wants a metric that reflects users' feedback about response quality. Drag the Copilot Studio Analytics category to the requirement it best supports. The source list is Source 1, Effectiveness. Source 2, Satisfaction. Source 3, Tool Use. Source 4, Use. Use these destination clues to complete the mapping. Requirement A, compare resolved, escalated, and abandoned conversation outcomes. Requirement B, track user feedback on the quality of agent responses. The requirement compare resolved, escalated, and abandoned conversation outcomes is best met by effectiveness. The requirement track user feedback on the quality of agent responses is best met by satisfaction. The decisive reason is effectiveness focuses on whether interactions achieve the intended outcome, including resolution versus abandonment or escalation. Satisfaction captures explicit user feedback on response quality. A useful exam pattern is this. Choose metrics by business question, outcome effectiveness for completion behavior, and satisfaction for user perceived quality. Move to question number 104. A company operates several Copilot Studio agents across web, Teams, and other channels. Business owners want a Microsoft native dashboard that provides built-in conversation performance, engagement, outcome, and quality insights without building a separate telemetry solution. Which monitoring experience should the architect recommend? Review the options. Choice A, Azure Advisor. Choice B, the analytics experience in Copilot Studio. Choice C, Microsoft Power BI without a prepared dataset. Choice D, Log Analytics as a standalone solution. The option that satisfies the complete requirement is option B, the analytics experience in Copilot Studio. Here is the reasoning that confirms the answer. Copilot Studio Analytics is the built-in experience for agent performance, engagement, outcomes, and conversation-level insights with minimal implementation effort. The remaining options fail one or more requirements because A, Azure Advisor provides Azure optimization recommendations rather than agent conversation analytics. C, Power BI would require a data model/report implementation rather than using the built-in agent analytics experience. D, Log Analytics is useful for operational logs, but is not the native Copilot Studio business/performance dashboard. Use built-in Copilot Studio Analytics for conversation KPIs. Add application insights when deeper runtime telemetry is required. Let's analyze question number 105. Review the scenario and identify what must be achieved. An AI agent analyzes customer feedback from a cloud database to generate monthly sentiment insights. The output influences product and marketing decisions, so the source data must be suitable for the intended use. Which data preparation action is most important? Review the options and eliminate any clear mismatch. Option A is limit the database to 100 gigabytes. Option B is translate every record into one language regardless of need. Option C is identify and address biased data. Option D is sort records by customer surname. The correct choice is option C, identify and address biased data. This option satisfies the complete requirement because bias in source data can distort sentiment findings and downstream decisions. Identifying and correcting biased or unrepresentative data is part of preparing trustworthy grounding/analysis data. Here is how to rule out the alternatives. A, database size is an operational constraint, not a data quality criterion for this decision. B, a single language is not inherently required if the selected AI solution supports the relevant languages. D, sorting records does not improve accuracy, representativeness, or fairness. Remember this decision rule. Data readiness is about quality and suitability, accuracy, cleanliness, relevance, timeliness, availability, and bias, not cosmetic ordering. Question number 106. Find the decisive clue before choosing. Look for the wording that eliminates the distractors. An organization is planning a new Azure-based sentiment analysis workload. Before deployment, finance needs an estimate of the monthly cost of the specific Azure services and expected usage to support ROI analysis. Which tool should the architect use? Compare the options by fit, not by familiarity. Next, option A, Azure reservations. Next, option B, Azure Monitor. Next, option C, Azure Pricing Calculator. Next, option D, Total Cost of Ownership Calculator. The option that satisfies the complete requirement is option C, Azure Pricing Calculator. The requirement to solution match is the Azure Pricing Calculator estimates prospective Azure service costs from selected services, tiers, regions, and usage assumptions, which directly supports pre-deployment cost estimation. The incorrect choices are plausible, but unsuitable because A, reservations are a purchasing/discount mechanism after sizing the workload. B, Azure Monitor observes deployed workloads rather than estimating initial service pricing. D, the TCO calculator is oriented to broader migration/on-premises versus Azure comparisons rather than detailed pricing of a new Azure service design. Exam strategy. Use the Azure pricing calculator for prospective Azure workload cost. Use cost management for actual and forecast operational spend. Start by identifying the requirement in question number 107. The next concept is AI ROI criteria. Read the scenario with the target outcome in mind. An enterprise already operates Azure resources for multiple business units and is planning an additional AI workload. Finance wants to analyze Azure spending, budgets, forecasts, and cost trends to support the investment decision. Which service should the architect recommend from the available choices? Check each option against the exact requirement. Option A is Azure Monitor. Option B is Microsoft Fabric SKU Estimator. Option C is Cost Management plus Billing. Option D is Azure Savings Plans. The required response is Option C, Cost Management plus Billing. The key clue points here because Cost Management plus Billing provides Azure cost analysis, budgets, forecasts, and spending visibility that can support ROI decisions for an Azure estate. A. Azure Monitor focuses on operational telemetry rather than financial management. B. The scenario is not a Fabric capacity sizing workload. D. Savings plans are a cost optimization purchasing option, not the main cost analysis service. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Use cost management for Azure spend analysis and optimization. Use pricing tools when you need a greenfield service price estimate. Question number 108. Tests careful elimination. Identify the decisive constraint before considering the options. A company is evaluating a proposed Azure AI sentiment analysis solution before provisioning it. The architecture team needs to estimate the cost of the selected Azure services under expected usage. Which tool should be used? Eliminate every option that violates even one requirement. Next, Option A, Azure Reservations. Next, Option B, Microsoft Fabric SKU Estimator. Next, Option C, Anomaly Detection in Azure Cost Management. Next, Option D, Azure Pricing Calculator. After elimination, select Option D, Azure Pricing Calculator. The Azure Pricing Calculator is designed to estimate the expected cost of Azure services before deployment from planned configuration and consumption. Check why each remaining option is not the best fit. A. Reservations optimize eligible committed usage after workload requirements are understood. B. Fabric SKU Estimator applies to Microsoft Fabric capacity sizing. C. Anomaly detection finds unusual patterns in actual cost data and does not estimate a not yet deployed workload. Use this elimination rule in the exam. For pre-deployment Azure cost estimation, use the pricing calculator. For actual spend anomalies, use cost management. For question number 109, separate the requirement from the distractors. Pay attention to qualifiers such as least, most, and minimum. A Dynamics 365 sales organization has Copilot enabled. It wants the opportunity summary to be presented directly on the opportunity form so sellers can see the AI-generated summary in context. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Statement 1. Test this claim. Add the opportunity summary widget to the opportunity form. For the first statement, choose yes. Adding the opportunity summary widget is a supported way to present the Copilot-generated opportunity summary directly within the opportunity form. A useful exam pattern is this. When the requirement is presentation of a native Dynamics Copilot summary, use the supported embedded widget rather than replacing the underlying Copilot feature. Focus on the key wording in question number 110. Treat this as an easy item and eliminate carefully. The key exam clue is contained in this scenario. A customer insights team needs a low-code agent that answers common questions with generative AI, can connect to business data used to identify customer demographics, and provides analytics for reviewing agent performance. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. For the first statement, verify. Build the solution by using GitHub Copilot. For the first statement, choose no. GitHub Copilot is primarily a software development assistant and does not provide the low-code business agent platform, enterprise connector model, and built-in agent analytics required. Choose an agent platform from the business process, integrations, governance, and monitoring requirements, not simply because it uses generative AI. Question number 111. Focus. A customer insights team needs a low-code agent that uses generative AI for common questions, connects to customer data for demographic analysis, and exposes analytics for monitoring agent performance. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Now evaluate statement 1. Build the solution by using Microsoft Security Copilot. After checking the full claim, statement 1 is no. Microsoft Security Copilot is purpose-built for security operations and does not match the general low-code customer analysis agent and business data integration requirement. Remember this decision rule. Prefer workload-specific copilots only when the business domain matches. Use Copilot Studio for general low-code business agents. Let's analyze question number 112. Review the scenario and identify what must be achieved. A customer insights team needs a low-code agent that answers common questions with generative AI, connects to enterprise customer data, supports actions and integrations, and provides analytics to review agent performance. For the statement, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Now evaluate statement 1. Build the solution by using Microsoft Copilot Studio. Statement 1 is yes. Copilot Studio is designed for low-code business agents with generative AI, enterprise knowledge and connector integration, actions/tools, publishing channels, and built-in analytics. Exam strategy. Use Copilot Studio when the requirement combines low-code agent authoring, enterprise data integration, generative responses, and agent analytics. Now tackle question number 113. Review the scenario. Contoso runs a Microsoft Foundry agent that handles both simple information lookups and complex multi-step reasoning. The organization wants each request to use an appropriate model automatically so that quality and cost are balanced. Compliance also requires routing to consider only an approved set of models. Complete the architecture by selecting the best option for each requirement. For the first statement, evaluate. To select the most suitable underlying model for each request automatically, use the blank. Choose the stronger fit from one. Model Router, a single direct model deployment, Azure AI Search, or a Copilot Studio topic. For the second statement, evaluate. To restrict routing decisions to organization-approved models, configure the blank. Choose the stronger fit from 2. A model subset, a higher output token limit, semantic ranking, or a prompt library. The clue in the first statement points to Model Router. Model Router performs per-request model selection, so diverse workloads do not need one fixed model. The clue in the second statement points to a model subset. A model subset limits the models that Model Router can consider for routing. Watch for this clue in similar questions. Use Model Router for dynamic cost-quality latency optimization. Use a direct deployment when the workload must always use one specific model. Approach question number 114 by checking every constraint. Next, we enter the topic of small language models. Look for the wording that eliminates the distractors. Fabricum needs an AI component for a high-volume, narrowly defined classification and extraction workload. The task does not require broad world knowledge, but low latency, predictable cost, and the ability to specialize model behavior are important. Which architecture should the solution architect recommend? Watch for distractors that are valid services but wrong for this scenario. Consider option A. Evaluate and customize a small language model, such as a phi-family model for the bounded workload. Consider option B. Use the largest available frontier model for every request because small language models cannot be specialized. Consider option C. Replace the language model with Azure AI Search because search performs generative classification. Consider option D. Use Model Router while excluding all small language models from consideration. The best answer is option A. Evaluate and customize a small language model, such as a phi-family model for the bounded workload. The decisive reason is small language models are well suited to focus tasks where lower compute requirements, latency, throughput, and cost matter. A bounded workload can justify evaluating and customizing an SLM instead of paying for frontier model capability that the task does not require. Now eliminate the distractors. B. SLMs can be specialized and can perform well on focused tasks. C. Search retrieves information but does not replace the required generative classification/extraction model. D. Excluding SLMs contradicts the stated efficiency and specialization requirements. Use this elimination rule in the exam. Choose an SLM when focused task performance and efficiency matter more than broad general-purpose model capability. Approach question number 115 by checking every constraint. Identify the decisive constraint before considering the options. A global organization is establishing an AI center of excellence to scale AI adoption across business units without making the central team a bottleneck. Product teams will continue to own delivery of their solutions. Which two responsibilities should the architect assign to the AI center of excellence? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Choose the best two answers and verify both. Eliminate every option that violates even one requirement. Next, option A. Define enterprise AI strategy, responsible AI guardrails, and reusable architecture patterns. Next, option B. Provide advisory guidance, intake and prioritization support, and AI skilling for delivery teams. Next, option C. Build and operate every production agent on behalf of all business units. Next, option D. Replace business and product owners as accountable owners of AI outcomes. Next, option E. Require the central team to approve every prompt edit before makers can test it. The required combination is option A. Define enterprise AI strategy, responsible AI guardrails, and reusable architecture patterns, and option B. Provide advisory guidance, intake and prioritization support, and AI skilling for delivery teams. Here is the reasoning that confirms the answer. An AI center of excellence establishes strategy, standards, governance, reusable practices, prioritization, and organizational capability. As adoption matures, it should enable and advise distributed delivery teams rather than become the owner of every implementation. The remaining options fail one or more requirements because C. Centralizing all production delivery creates a bottleneck and prevents distributed ownership. D. Business and product owners remain accountable for outcomes. E. A COE should set guardrails and guidance rather than require centralized approval of every low-level maker change. A useful exam pattern is this. An effective AI COE scales governance and reusable expertise while allowing product teams to retain delivery and outcome ownership. Next is question number 116. Identify the requirement in this scenario. Northwind must choose between extending Microsoft 365 Copilot and building a more customized agent architecture. One workload is primarily Microsoft 365 knowledge retrieval with simple actions and should inherit the Microsoft 365 Copilot orchestration and governance experience. Another requires complex orchestration, a specialized model, and full control over external integrations. Drag the most appropriate agent approach to each workload. Not all source items are used. First, identify what each source item actually does. Source item 1. A declarative agent that extends Microsoft 365 Copilot. Source item 2. A custom engine agent. Source item 3. A Microsoft 365 Copilot connector. Compare the sources against these target requirements. Destination A. Provide specialized knowledge and simple actions in Microsoft 365 Copilot while inheriting its orchestration and governance. Destination B. Support complex orchestration with full control over models and external integrations. Match a declarative agent that extends Microsoft 365 Copilot with provides specialized knowledge and simple actions in Microsoft 365 Copilot while inheriting its orchestration and governance because their roles align. Match a custom engine agent with support complex orchestration with full control over models and external integrations because their roles align. This option satisfies the complete requirement because declarative agents extend Microsoft 365 Copilot through configuration, knowledge, and actions while inheriting the Microsoft 365 Copilot platform. Custom engine agents are appropriate when the solution needs deeper orchestration control, custom models, or advanced integration behavior. Extend Microsoft 365 Copilot when its orchestration and governance fit. Choose a custom engine agent when requirements demand substantially more control. Next, question number 117. We are moving to custom model decision. AdventureWorks has a large set of approved examples for a specialized document classification task. Prompt engineering and grounding provide the required source information, but still do not produce sufficiently consistent task behavior. The organization wants the model itself to learn the specialized pattern. What should the architect recommend? Options. Option A. Add more frequently changing documents to a retrieval index. Option B. Fine-tune or otherwise customize an appropriate model in Microsoft Foundry using the approved examples. Option C. Replace the classification requirement with a Microsoft 365 Copilot connector. Option D. Increase the system prompt length indefinitely instead of evaluating model customization. The correct choice is option B. Fine-tune or otherwise customize an appropriate model in Microsoft Foundry using the approved examples. The requirement to solution match is the problem is specialized model behavior rather than missing or changing knowledge. Fine-tuning/customization can teach a model task-specific patterns from many approved examples when prompt engineering and grounding alone do not meet the required consistency. Here is how to rule out the alternatives. A. Our AG is best for supplying private or changing knowledge, not for changing model behavior. C. A connector provides access to data but does not train the model. D. Longer prompts are not a substitute when evaluated prompting has already failed to meet the behavior requirement. Remember this decision rule. Use our AG to add current knowledge. Consider model customization when the required change is specialized behavior or task performance. You have completed set 3 of the AB-100 Agentic AI Business Solutions Architect Practice Question Series. How did you score? Share your result in the comments. Work through all the sets to build broader exam readiness and cover more practice questions. Please like this video, subscribe to Tech with Koushik, and enable notifications for more certification exam preparation content. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in another practice set.